Hi everyone, it's Jackie Schomburg-Minen. You might remember that last week I left off just before I cut these four paintings up further. It started out as one big sheet, and now I'm going to make it into around a bajillion smaller pieces, about 5 by 7 inches each. Slightly less than a bajillion, but as I was looking through the photos to get everything uploaded here at the end, it felt like a bajillion. I wanted to keep cutting these up for a couple reasons. One, I did not like any of them as they are. They're very busy and I don't like the compositions and right, I'm just playing. This is the whole point of this is to let loose and play and glue stuff to paper, move paint around, etc. So, mission accomplished. I did that. Notice that the goal was not to make anything pretty because I mean, that's a lot of pressure. Just making a thing, I can do that. So I cut them up into about 5 by 7 pieces. And as I started working through all of the different situations, um, it became clear to me that I started getting really tight and not loose, and the opposite of what I wanted. So I will walk you through that. I will show you where I'm getting tight and not free, and then what I did to remedy that. I did end up with a lot of these that I really liked. Some of them just never made it into anything, so sometimes you just cut your losses. I was kind of done with this. I don't know. I may go back at some point, but I really like the ones that I like, and the ones that didn't really get together, it's not a problem. It's one of the benefits of working on lots of pieces at once. You don't have to like everything. Everything doesn't have to work for you to be successful. So I still ended up with 14 that I really like. At least I like enough to show you. Um, and it was really a lot of fun. Those of you who have watched other videos, you know I do not use purple very often. I do not use that brown kind of packing material very often. It was a new material to me. I'd used it one other time, but it is the inside of, I think, an Amazon envelope package, and the white globs that are on it are bits of styrofoam to be little padding. So if you tear the liner off, you're left with these pages with the white styrofoam dots. It was fun to play with. It did get very messy because as I painted over the styrofoam dots, the little styrofoam started coming off. So if you try to use it, heads up on that. A lot of people ask me what I do with art that's this small, and I would argue 5 by 7 isn't all that small. These are a little bit bigger than 5 by 7, so I could easily put them into a frame with a matte opening of 5 by 7. And they still look great inside a frame. And you can fold them in half and make them cards. You can, there's art on both sides. You can send somebody a note. You can turn them into a postcard, put a stamp on one side. You can do a whole bunch with these small pieces of art, including framing them and selling them, should you decide to do so. Okay, so this is all of the pieces I ended up with. And here they are again. So I'm putting them out today. There's a lot. And these 6 are the 6 I liked the most. So I put those aside. And I like to start with the low-hanging fruit when I try to drastically change something, or if I'm putting something together. So I pick the ones that I like the least to start with, or at least the ones that have the most obvious thing for me to change. So I'm adding some, what is that? That is yellow ochre with my catalyst wedge. And this is, again, I'm going over the bumpy spots of those styrofoam blobs. And it did create a very unique texture that looks very thick and clunky, but also kind of cool and different. Using a knitting needle to carve through the black layer. And I'm trying not to think too much about what I'm doing here. I did start thinking too much at a couple points and had to remind myself that it was unnecessary. This is just fun. So I totally get it. I mean, I one of the reasons that I, talk so much about pushing yourself and pushing through the ugliness and the messy middle, etc., is because that's what I struggle with. It's very hard. It used to be impossible for me to go back to something that I started painting and then go back to it, a week, a month, a year later. Even though I didn't like how I left it, I would be afraid to mess it up. And again, starting with some things that I really didn't like and didn't have any risk of losing anything great, trying to add more to those was very freeing. And it showed me that really there's nothing to lose. It really is just paint. This guide in my left hand, I don't really know what it's called, but it's a Husky brand. Oh, it's a 12-inch paint shield. So it's more for painting houses where you can hold that up into, between what you're painting and the wood trim on a wall, for example. Instead of using tape, you could use that. It also comes in handy if you want to have a straight line in your painting. And it's kind of nice to have straight lines mixed in with, hand-drawn, slightly wobbly, clearly hand-drawn lines. It's also really fun to make shapes with it. This is a cream yellow that I made with some yellow ochre. Much more a cream than a yellow, but technically it does have some yellow in it. And as I'm working through these, I'm looking for a few things. One, I'm looking to check the values in each of these smaller paintings. So is the whole thing too dark? Is the whole thing too light? Is the whole thing full of medium values? And then I'm adding whatever I feel is missing. If something looks very dark, I'm adding some light. If something looks very light, I'm going to add some dark. And if things look balanced, then I'm going to add some yellow ochre just to add another color in. I'm not trying to finish these in one layer. I'm just trying to take one step forward that will get me one step closer to something that I like. And I did find myself being very tentative in places. And also very, detail oriented, which isn't a bad thing, but I was very focused on making many steps on one of these at a time versus just making one step on each of them and then coming back around, which for me is the easiest way because then I'm less attached to any one painting and I'm just pushing things one step. When I start pushing things and I'm, 4, 5, 6, 7 steps in on the same little painting, now all of a sudden I'm feeling like things are precious. I'm getting frustrated because I don't know what to do next. And when I realize I'm doing that, I switch to a new piece of paper. There really is a lot of value, from my perspective, in working with more than one painting at a time. Now, these curved lines that I started making here, I followed the drips on the mostly white painting and then followed some drips on these, but I just started making these shapes and I really liked them. Thus, they became part of my theme of this body of work. Or this series. It's not really a body of work, I suppose. So this one in particular is getting very busy and tight for my liking. And I knew it at the time, but it's one thing to know that things are looking tight and not free and loose, and it's another thing to know what to do to fix them. So I decided to paint in and let that purple stay as negative space around the white to finish off those circles. I took some of the paint off and then I decided I didn't like it transparent as it was, so added it back in. Again, it's just paint. Such an easy fix. It was interesting working with these colors because I typically do not use purples, as I mentioned. And there were many times that I just felt plain stuck. And I would look at these pictures and I would say, why am I doing these? These are horrible. I should just stop and pretend I never made this series and move on. But uh, I was inspired to keep going, or motivated anyway, because one, I promised you guys that I would make them. And two, I wanted to see what could happen. And again, when you don't love something, it's easier to keep working on it and keep uh, pushing and trying new things, taking more risks. That's what I'm looking for. So I'm mixing alizarin crimson with some phthalo blue green shade. And I want to get a richer purple color that I can use for, glazing. So this way it ties some of the purples together. It's a warmer purple, so it has more red in it. And I thought it was a nice addition. The other purple, though I love the colors that I made, it felt very cold and flat. Having this extra alizarin crimson-ish glaze over the top, it just added richness for me. Did you guys notice the Taylor Swift book pop up? It's for my daughter's friend's birthday party that I need to wrap. And my husband set it on my desk and I didn't realize it. So now you guys know my summer reading. A lot of these I ended up going over the bluish cool purple with that alizarin crimson glaze. And a lot of them I just covered over all of the flat purple. Sometimes I would use my spray bottle to get little water droplet marks of the cool purple to show through. Sometimes I would leave some of it. I really enjoyed adding the richness of this reddish purple around these areas. That was a fail. I decided I would try glazing that, but I didn't have the accuracy with the wipe I was using to get into all those little nooks and crannies. And I didn't like how light it was. So I decided I'd switch to a brush and add black, which I think was the right move. It's such a strong choice. It's very crisp, especially against the white. You gotta love a good black and white contrast, guys. I assume that most of you are watching because you also do. Otherwise, you'd be so annoyed with me in these videos when I always go to black and white. But it's so satisfying when you get something cool in black and white and it works. It's like the design aesthetic that is so magical when you get it. So when I wasn't sure what else to do, I grabbed my white grease pencil or China marker and decided I would just scribble, because there were lots of them that, like this one, I really liked it, but it felt too dark or too medium toned or too something. So I figured I'd scribble and that would be something different that I could add to it, which I did like. Same thing here, just trying to add something different that's not there. In the case of the one that I was just working on, there were already stripes there, but I added some more. This is just a giant scribble rectangle. Kind of liked it. I kind of was there just to cover stuff up that I didn't like. It all works. This one I really like. I really like where this one's going. I wish that one was 36 by 48. I would hang that on my wall tonight. Filling in some edges. I'm just making things a little bit more different. There were a couple different shades of purple on some of these. I had used the lavender color that was on these smaller pictures, was from a lavender tissue paper that I used. And again, you can go back to part 1. I'll put a link in the description back to that, and you can see how we got here. I'm tracing around those styrofoam blobs here. So they've all been painted over, but I'm tracing around them. You can see as I keep taking something and thinking, no, not that one yet, and then I move it to the side. And if you think I have a plan, you'd be mistaken. I do not have a plan, which is probably obvious to most of you. I'm just looking at each individual rectangle painting as it comes back in its rotation and trying to figure out what to do next. All right, so right now I'm dividing up the ones I think have real potential with the ones I have no idea what to do. So, spoiler alert, the ones at the very top, I have no idea what to do. The rest of them, I decided needed a little pop of red. And as much as I was, it took me a while to add the red because I wasn't sure that that was going to be the right color to add, but then by this point I was pretty loose and I was like, whatever, just put the color down. Let's go, let's get this done. I really like how the red adds a little punch. Again, this is probably so predictable for me, but I love a good punch of red. Again, I'm assuming that many of you also do, because otherwise you would have stopped watching my videos long ago. So, cheers to those of us who like a good pop of red. And that's old tissue paper that I had. It was from a jelly plate. I can't remember how I put it down or why I put it down like that, but I'm finally using it. So it was worth keeping all those years. It's probably only a couple years, but still. Just a lot of trial and error. Just trying things on, seeing what looks good. The beauty of collage, I'll say it again and again and again, it makes it so easy to try things on. If you add a big glob of red paint to a painting, it's much harder to undo. If you add a big collage piece of red and move it around before you glue it down, it's very easy to move around. Once you glue it down, you're stuck, but you can paint over it. I went searching for more red because I ran out of that one scrap. I found a checkerboard pattern that I made that pattern for my jelly plate, and it took forever. I was using an X-Acto knife in cardstock, and it just took forever to make all those little squares. And then I put it down on my jelly plate and left it too long, and when I pulled it up, the whole thing tore. So I got literally one print out of it, and it was terrible. It was not something I've ever used again, so. It does remind me of Umbro's shorts, though. For anyone was in the US in the 90s, I feel like that's what everyone wore to school in grade school. It's like soccer uniform shorts. But they had a shiny checkerboard pattern. Along with changing up the shapes I'm using in collage, I'm also wanting to have different impactful elements in each of the paintings. So this is a tiny strip of red that I added. It's not a huge thing. It's pretty tame. Whereas this is some very loud, larger pieces of red. I guess it's all loud. But when it's loud and it's small, it's not as loud. And sometimes you'll just know, like I knew that I wanted red on that other page. This is a different scrap from a different painting that I cut up and tore up, and I like that addition a lot. So I just kept a rotation, went through each painting by itself in a rotation again and again to decide what each piece needed. And the final pages are here. I really like this one a lot. I really like the first few. This one I turned upside down and love it. And there's some less successful ones toward the back, but I had a ton of fun. I really ended up in a good place with these. So I would just encourage you to play with colors you don't normally use, play with shapes you don't normally use. Just play with all of it and then edit it later. And when you do, send me a note and let me know how it felt. Because this felt really good, and it was a challenge, and it kept my mind occupied. And it was all the things that make art fun for me. So enjoy yourself, go find something to do the thing, play, have fun. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. It really helps my channel, and I'd love to make more videos for you. Bye.